I am best friends with Cooper, Sephiroth, and Dr. Wily. Always smiley, but my thoughts are red just like my Ozzy. Yeah, we get it, we get it, we get it.
What's up, Wizards Dev, SPMTG? There's decks and stuff around here somewhere. Today, we're going to do something that's been really popular in the comments, which surprised me, but I'm excited about it. This is Mono Black Control, a deck that I've been working on different little versions of for about a month since I first saw a certain card. We'll get there, don't worry. But let's go ahead and go over this deck, because I know a lot of you are interested. Good news, this deck is only going to cost you something like $50 to $75 or $80 on TCG Player, and that's with the somewhat high pre-order prices on some cards that may cool off in just a little while. They typically do. So really not much to build this, and this is, if we're just going to stick to strictly mono black and no other colors, one of the better versions of the deck we can build, and it stays very cheap. So let's check it out. I'm going to flip it from how I normally do it and do the spells first in this control deck. I think the spells are very integral to a control deck. We're playing something like 23 spells, 25 non-creature spells. That's an awful lot. So let's go over those real fast. First of all, we're going to play a whole four Duress in the deck. Esper Dragons already plays 4 Duress, and we are taking some of our cues from other control decks in the format right now. I think that's important. We get sometimes run over by really fast aggro, which definitely exists in the format. Even more so with Is It Aggro, almost certainly going to try to be a thing in the format for the next few months. So we need some help against aggro decks, and Duress is actually better than it looks. You know, it says non-creature, but those decks all rely on a ton of non-creature spells, i.e. Titan Strength, Temur Battle Rage, the 2 new cantrips in Oath of the Gatewatch, a bunch of other stuff, Become Immense, Dramoka's Command, Atarka's Command, you can name cards all day that you can effectively just get out of their hand with Duress. The other important thing about Duress is that Mono Black doesn't really have a whole lot of ways of getting rid of enchantments or artifacts, and Duress is really our last or only line of defense against some of those cards. Against other control decks, which we have pretty slim game against, honestly, other control decks that play blue especially, they have a fairly good game against us. So Duress can also help against those, getting the counter spells and other important things out of their hands. So I think it is important to play a full playset of Duress. That out of the way, let's run through the removal. There are 20 main deck pieces of removal in the deck, and that's if you don't count Duress. Some people might in that argument there. But yeah, 20 pieces of removal in the deck is an awful lot. That is Black's strong suit there. So let's play that up as much as we can. First of all, we're going to play 4 copies of Grasp of Darkness and 1 copy of Ultimate Price. Again, Esper Dragons plays 3 and 4 Ultimate Price. The card doesn't look amazing in this format, but it's so good against the aggro decks that tend to do pretty well in the early game against us. So I feel like we absolutely have to play at least the 1 Ultimate Price, but Grasp of Darkness definitely takes its place, I think, in a lot of decks that are comfortable producing black mana at the rate that we obviously are. It's a mono black deck. Just Grasp of Darkness takes out almost every important creature in the format other than Siege Rhino, which is pretty much every creature in the format. Kills Jace on curve. There's so many things that the card does that we absolutely, I think, should play a full complement of it. It's the fastest, just the lowest to the ground, instant speed removal in the format, and takes out pretty much anything they'll play on the second turn. So love Grasp. 2 copies of Ruinous Path, because we're mono black here. Sometimes you'll see 1 or even 0 copies in other control decks, but I think it's important to play Ruinous Path. It's one of our only other answers, really, to Planeswalkers. So I think that's cool too, and it's a creature. We're thin on creatures in the deck, but the ones we have are very effective, But this is effectively another creature in situations we need it to be another creature. So there is that, but mostly it's just pretty darn good removal. So let's play at least 2 copies. And 3 Murderous Cut to finish off the cards that are just strictly removal here. In this version of the deck, the strictly budget one, I'm not playing any green or black sources, so we could play Tasigur, if we were adding green or black sources. But we're not playing Tasigur. Murderous Cut is our only thing with Delve in the entire deck, so I'm pretty comfortable playing 3 copies of it, especially with so many instants and sorceries. We are playing a fetch land in the form of Evolving Wild, so there's that too. So I think there's plenty of reasons to, think that we can activate Delve, and it's been easy enough. This went from 2 to 3 in testing, because it takes out Siege Rhino, and we don't have a whole lot of other cards in the deck that are capable of doing that. And Siege Rhino is pretty good against us, just like it is against everything else. So I think it's important to play the 3 Murderous Cut. If not, almost, I'm really considering adding a 4th, to be honest with you. That's all the cards, or spells at least, that are strictly removal. What else are we packing here? We've got 4 copies of Read the Bones. This is an important card. Again, if we were playing, something maybe Sultai colors, because then you could play Jace and Den Protector, and that would be just hilarious. But if we were playing Soul-type colors, I would probably play Painful Truce instead, or if we were an Esper, play Painful Truce instead. That's probably the much better card. Drawing 3 is insane. But Read the Bones is just perfectly fine for our mono black control deck, and it's not going to cost you hardly anything. I love scrying 2 and then drawing 2. Just, yeah, card advantage, yes, it's control deck, we need it. 1 copy of Dark Petition in the deck, and we are pretty stacked on these 5-drops. That's why there's only 1 copy of this. It's because we're running something like, what, 7 5-drops in the deck? It's a control deck. I think we can probably get away with it. And it's been pretty hilarious so far anyway. So the 1 Dark Petition is just, it's a toolbox kind of spell. There's just the 1 silver bullet copy of it in there. Go get anything you want. And this will help you cast some things in the deck for free. So that's good too. And Spell Mastery is super easy to activate. Again, 23 spells in the deck. It's really not hard. I saved this for last as far as the spells go. This is Remorseless Punishment, and it was the entire reason that I wanted to build the deck. I'm playing a full 4 of copies of this thing right here, and I was playing 3, but no, I totally want 4. Totally fine adding another 5-drop to have 4 copies of this, especially in a deck that doesn't play, Jace or Tasigur or Den Protector, ways to get it back out of the graveyard and stuff. In decks that maybe play Jace, I might run 3 copies of this, but what we have right here, I would definitely play all 4. I want to see this all freaking day. I've called the card a mini Cruel Ultimatum, and I'll stick by that assessment. The card has been ridiculous in testing so far, and there are situations that we can set up that make the card just absolutely glow, First of all, we're playing Hand Destruction and Duress, and we're playing a lot, if you haven't noticed, of removal, so we can keep the board relatively clean. We can get the best stuff out of their hand. Punishment just puts them in a really awkward situation, no matter what they end up choosing. And running, being able to play one after another is just ridiculous. I mean, and they hate making this decision. Absolutely. So, Remorseless Punishment, I could really babble about it all day, but I definitely was the reason I wanted to build the deck, and it has proven to be very good, especially in conjunction with 1 or 2 of these other cards, and really just all the removal and hand destruction and stuff we're playing. It's just good with all of that, too. 2 copies of Planeswalker cards in the deck. They're the same guy. 2 copies of Obnixilis in the deck, which again, it also helps us draw cards alongside Read the Bones. Drawing cards is very important for a control deck. If we can outdraw them in something like this, that's very important. We got a lot of removal elements and as many as we can draw into as possible. We need to do. Obnixilis helps us do that. Or, he can just blow a guy away on his own. That's fine. I've won a couple of games off of his ultimate even. So, the card is very good. And I think it's worth including more 5-drops just to play Obnixilis because he's a way to end the game, he's card advantage, and he's removal. Something the control deck, especially just mono black control, wants. So, yeah, Obnixilis is done. Now on to the creatures. We're playing 9 creatures in the deck, and a lot of these may come out of left field, but I've done a lot of shifting and changing the creatures around since stuff's getting spoiled and all that, and found what I think are the best creatures we can play in this deck. So hear me out here. I'm going to start with something weird. 4 copies of Bearer of Silence. And I know a lot of people love this card, but does it work? Sure, we've got enough colorless sources in our mana base to make this work. We have effectively 10 ways of making colorless mana in the mana base. So Bearer of Silence is very, very easy. We have till the 4th turn to do that. Or we can just play it as an early game, an aggro drop against certain decks. That's good too. It's just Bearer of Silence has been very good, especially against other control decks, which I've already mentioned we have poor game against, because it kills Ojutais and it kills Silumgars and things like that. And it's on the cast. It's when you cast, not when it enters the battlefield. That's very important, because they can't just counter it and not have to worry about sacrificing a guy. No, they can counter it. It doesn't have to resolve. They still have to sack a guy. That is extraordinarily important against some of the control decks in the format, namely Esper Dragons. So Bearer of Silence has been very good so far for me. I think it's totally worth having to make colorless mana to get it. 2 copies of Kalitas in the deck. Kalitas is ridiculous with Remorseless Punishment, and you can play it on curve. 4th turn Kalitas, 5th turn Remorseless Punishment, and then they're in a really weird situation where if they sacrifice guys, you get guys that you can then either swing in with, or you can just make Kalitas huge with, You really want them to sack dudes, is all I'm saying when you play that punishment on the next turn. So Kalitas, just outside of how good he is alone, is ridiculous when played, on curve, alongside a Remorseless Punishment. It just makes punishment amazing. And Kalitas, good on his own with all the removal that we're playing in this deck. All we have to do is zap a guy or 2, and we've gotten a lot of value out of Kalitas. Just good alongside all the removal, and especially punishment. I really can't stress that enough. The next 3 cards are the weirdest cards in the deck, and I'm probably going to get some comments, but hear me out here. First of all, we're going to play 2 copies of Inverter of Truth. This started off as a 1-of, and then I ended up putting 2 in because you can loop them, which has come up a couple of times. If you play an Inverter of Truth and you've already got an inverter in the graveyard, then then obviously I think you see where it's going. You'll be able to put the inverter that's already in your graveyard back into your library, basically. And even if your library is only like 8 or 9 cards after you do this, an inverter's in there. You'll draw into it and you'll be able to invert again. And if the inverter that you played first hits the graveyard somehow, you're able to loop them over and over and over. And that actually is really, really good. With all the removal that we're playing in this deck, it's actually amazing. Inverter is, because you'll basically later on in the game be able to just put all the amazing gas you've already played. You can make that now your new library. And even if it's only 10 cards, it's all cards that will affect the game like amazingly. So Inverter has actually been like super awesome even if they remove it, because now your library is nothing but incredible cards. So the Inverter has been awesome. Definitely the weirdest card in the deck. This is Risen Executioner, and I already know what you're thinking, but we're only playing 9 creatures in the deck. We have Murderous Cuts. That, by the way, Murderous Cut can also help out Inverter of Truth. We can get rid of all the maybe lands that are in the graveyard or just junk that we don't want to be in our library. We can delve it away with Murderous Cut and then invert. Same thing with Risen Executioner. We can play Murderous Cut, delve away all the creatures in our graveyard that we don't want them to be there. That'll help us replay Risen Executioner for very cheap. He's got ridiculous synergy with Kalitas in that you can sacrifice him, put 2 counters on, bring him back in. Sacrifice him, put 2 counters on, bring him back in. That gets ridiculous, not to mention the fact that he's just a recursible 4-power threat in and of himself. It's just everything about the guy is pretty freaking sweet. So I'm definitely going to play the 1 Risen Executioner, and he's been like pretty darn good. And sometimes he'll win games on his own because they just can't get rid of him. So yeah, Executioner is much, much better than he looks. Here are the lands right here, and there's a couple of things to talk about. You'll notice there's a few 1-ofs. Majoring Network helps us get to all of our expensive cards much, much faster, or at least more reliably, and allows us to play more than 1 spell later on in the game. That can be important, especially for all the things that draw cards in the deck. There's a couple of reasons to play Majoring Network other than obviously Bearer of Silence. We want to do it for that reason too. But there are turns where, we'll Dark Petition for something that costs more than 3 black and we have to cast it. Majoring Network can help with that. There's a couple of different situations where we might want Network. So I'm playing it definitely that. Mirror Pool is obviously dumb. We're not going to be copying too many of our creatures. We could copy an Inverter. That's not bad at all. But mostly we're going to be copying spells, especially Remorseless Punishment if we have the mana for it. So Mirror Pool has been good. Mortuary Mire can help with Risen Executioner, getting a creature out of your graveyard and just putting a good creature back on top. Maybe a Bearer of Silence. You can cast it again, get that sacrifice trigger. Mortuary Mire has a lot of good synergies in the deck. And Seagate Wreckage can really help, when we have 0 cards in our hand, but later in the game can really help us draw cards. That's important for a control deck. Blighted Fin produces the colorless mana needed to play Bearer of Silence for, the extra cost on it. That's good, and it makes them sacrifice guys. Evolving Wilds can help us find the wastes, There's just like a lot of really important choices as far as the lands go, so take it all in. Here's the sideboard for you right here, and we have a lot of good options, Just a couple of things I'll touch on, though. Infinite Obliteration is specifically against the decks that run things like Ulamog in the format, and maybe the decks that run Kozilek. I can see that happening too. Just very, very important cards so those decks don't go way over the top of us late game. And obviously too, Flaying Tendrils, which doesn't have the best synergy with Kalitas, but we're only running 2 Kalitas. That's really situational. I think Flaying Tendrils is just really, really important against the onslaught of aggro decks in the format, so I'll definitely play that. And Crux of Fate is so we have like just unconditional mass removal. I get that it's slightly conditional, but it's good against Esper Dragons and it's good against aggros. I'll play at least the 1 copy. And here are the power rankings for the deck. Like I mentioned earlier, it's only about 50 to 80 bucks right now on TCG Player, and it's set to maybe go south of that in the coming month or so. And the final score on this is 64. Longtime followers of the channel will know that 64 is a pretty good score for one of these budget decks. That can hang with the big boys, and has done so in testing. I think it's a really good F&M deck, and it's a really good deck to build now and build onto later, because the only card in this entire list that I presented you that rotates soon at all is going to be a Murderous Cut. Remember that Dragons of Tarkir doesn't rotate with Cons and Fate Reforged. It rotates this fall with Magic Origins. Cons and Fate rotate in April. And the only thing in the entire list, the main deck at least, that rotates in April is Murderous Cut. So the deck is going to last for quite some time. It's fairly cheap, and it's fairly powerful, and it's really moddable. So this is a good deck to go with. Sleeve that up and let me know how you guys feel. I've had a lot of fun doing like different things with the deck, and I think it has the potential to be very powerful by adding a couple of colors. So hope you guys liked it. What are we doing next time? Well, I've gotten a lot of support in the comments for Cynic Flash. That's making a comeback. Allies, people really want to see in Goblins, which I'm leaning toward Goblins next, but I've got a ton of ideas in the old notebook. So let me know what you guys want to see next, and I'll get right on it. If you enjoyed the content, I just want you to hit thumbs up. It takes like 2 seconds, that amount of time right there. To hit thumbs up. I'm sorry for snapping at you, by the way. You can share the video if you feel like it, comment, let me know how you felt, or you can sub if you're new, or if you've never seen my ugly mug before, if you've just been watching forever and you haven't subbed yet. Now's probably the time. I'm Deb from SBMTG. Thanks for watching, my wizards.
Nailed with Cupid sure shut, cause you were the finest one like Sailor Jupiter. Hot like stovetop, sexy in the clothes you rock, stacked like pancakes from top to your socks.